It's obvious that you listen to this show to hear about and support other people's dreams. But what about yours? What is your dream project? I'm here to help you break through whatever is in the way of your dreams and get you to the finish line. Go to dreamingbigcoaching.com today and take the first step. Literally, it's a button you can click to sign up for a free consultation with me. Let's find out if I can help you reach your goal. Click on Take the First Step. It's that simple to start the rest of your life. Get coached by Rob Southgate at dreamingbigcoaching.com. Look, we're all nerds here. Todd Stashwick's Nerd Circus is a great place to pick up nerdy paraphernalia and groovy wares. How about some sweet lava lamp dice? Or maybe a funky 70s Rec Room Nerd Circus dice box? Does that do anything for you? Need a drink? What about the book Mystic Libations? Critical cocktails for the thirsty adventurer. Look, Todd Stashwick's Nerd Circus is the place for nerdy threads, cool tabletop gifts, and more. Go to thenerdcircus.com and check out the cool stuff. Oh yeah, and let them know the TTRPG Insider sent you. And welcome back again to TTRPG Insider. I'm your host, Rob Southgate. This is a podcast about, shockingly enough, tabletop role-playing games. More specifically, it's about the amazing people that create TTRPGs. Every episode, I interview someone who is involved in the making of the games that we all love to play. I want to hear their stories of their lives, of their games, and the fun stories that they have to share. You can follow TTRPG Insider on Facebook by searching for TTRPG Insider. You can also find us on Twitter at TTRPG Insider. I do plan to add other social media, but for now, those are the best places to find me. If you want to email, you can send me an email directly to rob@ttrpginsider.com. This month, we're featuring Cthulhu Dreamt by Action Fiction. They have a Kickstarter campaign running currently through September 8th, 2023. Please support Cthulhu Dreamt, both financially and by sharing it across your social media. You never know who's going to fall in love with this game. So go to Kickstarter and search for Cthulhu Dreamt, or simply click on the link in our show notes today. Today's guest is Strato. They are a writer on Cthulhu Dreamt by Action Fiction. Here's Strato. Strato, welcome to TTRPG Insider. It is a real treat to have you on here. I love talking to the writers. You're a writer on Cthulhu Dreamt, which is the game of the month. We're kind of featuring everybody from that this month. And I am so happy to have you on the show. But you know what? Rather than have me talk about you, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do?
All right. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's a lot of fun. Yes, I have been working on Cthulhu Dreamt. As you mentioned, I'm a writer. Only got into writing for games design very recently. Technically started back in 2020 at the start of the pandemic.
Okay.
So it, silver linings, it turns out. Suddenly working from home gave me a little extra time that I wasn't commuting to actually put creative thoughts on paper.
Nice.
But can't pretend I wasn't a creative sort of person even before then. This was just a nice little outlet for the open mics and karaoke and things that I couldn't attend anymore.
Right. So you had to get it out somewhere.
Yeah.
You started writing.
Can't play songs, can't write songs, so got to write something else. May as well be games, I guess.
So you are a singer?
Yes. Been a musician for most of my life, actually. And I'll play any instrument people will give me or put in my hands for long enough for me to figure out what sounds right.
Yeah, I love it. So what kind of music do you do? What's your field? And you're going to say everything, but we all have our thing we dig.
I mean, a lot of people say everything, and they don't always mean everything.
Right.
When I say everything, I do kind of mean it. My playlist for commuting home from work, now that they've got me back in the office, includes punk covers of 90s pop music.
Yep,
and
love it.
Gregorian chant versions of 80s love ballads.
Oh, now that's one I have not delved into, but I'm the same way, a very eclectic playlist.
And I mean, that kind of gives a hint as to what style I perform in. My main instrument in recent years has been the ukulele because it's very portable and no one is ever sure what to expect out of it except for the very twee, cutesy island pop songs,
Right.
things like that, and the very hipster indie music.
Yeah.
And no one ever expects it when I start playing Stained or Disturbed or Nine Inch Nails.
And now Closer on ukulele. Yes.
Actually, that is the one I play.
That's the one I heard in my head as soon as you said it. I was like, yep, that'd be my first pick. That's awesome. That's awesome. And as a writer, now you said you got to kind of blossom in TTRPG, but were you writing before? Were you trying to do that?
So I was doing a little bit of it. I had a couple of ideas for stories I was working on, and I had been working on a couple of just film projects. And
for yourself, or were you writing for someone else?
So I've written a couple of short film scripts or screenplays for my own sake, just for fun.
Okay.
But I was also working on a feature-length pilot for a science fiction series.
Cool.
Big dramatic science fiction series. And amusingly, a little bit of the DNA for that is still in Cthulhu Dreamt.
It does happen. The ideas you have kind of stay with you and adapt and become other things. And
especially that one, I had this fantastic idea for something I wanted to use in the science fiction project. And one of the big things that I've come to hate is I'm just so tired of portals in the science fiction. Like everything that involves another world, another planet, everything else, they always end up with a portal.
Yep.
And I'm just so tired of it because can't we come up with some other visual or some other kind of shorthand? I know it's a standard trope, but I wanted to see something different. So I came up with something different. The project kind of fell through one of our cast members. I can't divulge who the person was who was attached to the project, but they ended up being a bit problematic. So that kind of folded.
It happens.
Yeah. So fortunately, the idea I had for an answer to portals gets to live on.
Excellent. And it sounds like we're going to get a little treat here in Cthulhu Dreamt.
Oh, yes.
So TTRPG, you said you started writing around the time of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Have you written a lot of stuff? Have you been kind of a hired gun? How does that work for you?
So it all happened just because I was scrolling Twitter, because at the beginning, when we were all just starting to be at home, I had no idea what to do with myself. So I spent a lot of time just browsing social media to see what other people were doing. And, once you get past scrolling through everybody and their brother who started making bread during that first couple of months of the pandemic.
But we all are artisan bread makers now.
Yes, indeed. We all learned that skill. Honestly, my own beer bread still just amazes me for how good that turned out. So
very good.
So, but as I was trying to figure out what to do with my time, because all of a sudden I'm a very social person, so I couldn't go out, I couldn't perform, I couldn't interact with people, especially since I just managed to take one of my other hobbies into a semi-professional kind of mode. I'm also a magician.
Hey.
And
all right.
I think it was about halfway through 2019, a buddy of mine who is a professional magician actually had me going out to meetings, and he told me outright at the beginning his main reason for it was because he knows my sense of humor and he knows that we've got stage chemistry. We start joking and riffing off each other. We have an easy time of it.
Yeah.
So he's had a bunch of tricks that he's wanted to do for years that require two magicians working at the same time. And he couldn't find anyone who wanted to perform who also had the right sense of humor for it. As soon as he heard that I wanted to get into doing magic seriously, he's like, okay, you're coming out to the meetings at the Magic Circle. We're training you. I'll teach you whatever you want to know.
Yeah. Awesome.
And
awesome.
All of a sudden,
so you transitioned to being a magician.
Yep. Well, I did a little bit of practice in that, but as I'm scrolling through Twitter, I saw the launch for Action Fiction's Monsters of Merca.
Yeah.
The first book, the original project for that company.
Right.
And I was so tickled by the idea of it, this satirical comedy fantasy America, that I needed to know more. And I participated in a public playtest, just a streamed game that was a promotional thing for the launch of the game.
Okay.
And I hung out in the community server because it was just so much fun interacting with these funny people.
Right, right.
And before long, they mentioned they wanted to start an expansion for it, restaurants and retail. So I figured, well, I've never written game content before, but I've been playing games playing tabletop games since I was 10.
Wow.
And to give you an idea, 3rd edition hadn't happened yet.
Yep. Okay.
So I was raised on the TSR books.
Nice.
So very old school there. And so I've been playing for so many years, and I started DMing in middle school.
Wow.
So, I mean, just years and years of experience. I figured, I've probably got a decent grasp of how to do this. Let's go ahead and submit a sample. Worst case scenario, they tell me, hey, not this time, better luck next time. I ask for feedback. What could I do better? And, that's how you improve as a writer.
That's right.
That's my whole mentality. I didn't expect to get accepted with it, but then I was.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I actually think there's a lesson there for people, because the people that listen to this are people that are either in the industry or people that are just like fascinated by people behind the scenes and probably have a little bit of a desire to get into it themselves. What you just said should be something people could, take to the bank. Like, hey, just try.
Absolutely.
And when you slip and fall, it's not the end of it.
Oh, no.
Keep trying.
Yeah. If you write something that wasn't quite good enough this time, ask what you could improve on, what needed work, and you can absolutely take that advice, learn from it, get some more practice, and try again the next time around, and who knows?
Yeah, I love the whole TTRPG scene too, because you talked about filmmaking. I was part of the Ice Pack in Minnesota years ago and worked with Independent Film Project. The barrier to entry was ridiculous. Now it's a lot easier. You could take your iPhone and shoot a film, and it actually doesn't look terrible. But back then, like even just getting 3 minutes of film developed that looked okay was super expensive.
And you didn't know if you actually had the shot until you went and developed it.
Right. And I remember I wrote a script, I wrote a short film, and we tried to film a little bit of it, and you're on set and all of a sudden you realize, like, how am I going to sync this audio up in a way that's going to work? Like those kind of things come up. But when you're writing, I always said to people, you write comic books. You got a story to tell, write a comic book. And then I would always, on the other side, like if you've got a world building thing, write a tabletop game. And I didn't know anyone doing it until recently, when it's like, I've got all these friends now that like, hey, they see it. They can convert things into these tabletop adventures and write these worlds. And guess what? It takes a lot of writing under your belt to make that happen. So
absolutely,
jump in and try. So what have you written? What's some of the stuff you've written?
Well, most of my work to date that people can check out is in Restaurants and Retail, Monsters of Merca, which is our second installment in the Merca verse. Basically, I loved it so much I needed to become part of it. So that one, I worked on the Flavor City section of the book, which is our high fantasy version of Flavor Town. And it's
I love that.
The city that is forever wandering, because Flavor Town, it's not a single place. It's something to always be pursuing. So
you're always
drifts.
In pursuit of Flavor Town.
Absolutely. And for that one, the first thing I did before the first meeting with the other freelancers, because the book is divided into 3 sections, and each section had 6 freelancers working on it. Big, lofty goals worth of a book. And we kind of over-delivered because the book is close to 800 pages.
Okay.
Yeah, we had huge goals for this, and we should have dreamed bigger, actually. But I came in to the first meeting, and one of the other people who worked on both that book and he's a member of the company, Brad, who's also working on Cthulhu Dreamt. I think you've interviewed him, actually.
Yes, actually, I interviewed him today. We had a great conversation.
Oh, great. Brad can attest to this. I showed up to the first meeting with a slideshow ready to go because I had this image in my mind of Guy Fieri, our Lord of Flavortown,
Flavortown, too funny. Okay.
As a paladin. And I had this slideshow of all the evidence of the things that Fieri has done in his life in the real world that says to me, we need to make him some kind of divine or semi-divine individual. And I pitched the idea. I said maybe 3 or 4 of the qualifiers, and everyone already agreed. It's like,
that's awesome.
Oh, cool. I prepared the slideshow for nothing.
Yeah, but you know what? You now have a slideshow you can show people that they go, yeah,
Absolutely.
this is cool.
And I have. You better believe I have. I wrote so much lore.
Oh my God. Around Guy Fieri.
Prince Guillaume Fier.
Oh my God.
And from there, it just kept on flowing because from there, I created a paladin oath inspired by him, the oath of flavor, because the concept of flavor in this is not just the idea of what you put into your mouth, it's what you put into your soul. The flavor is when you gather everyone together with a common passion. So flavor is the community.
Flavor is the glue that binds us all. Yes.
Exactly. And from there, I had an idea that was just a joke, but I didn't share the joke at first. Instead, I shared the way I was getting to the joke. And that was the oath of deliciousness, an evil oath of paladins.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And I didn't tell people until much later, but this was literally created just as an excuse to have an oath of paladins that people would have to pronounce their name or the short form of their name as Pauladine.
You know what? That's fantastic.
But yeah, it was just created as this decadent oath of paladins who are all about self-indulgence.
It's one of those jokes that it takes a mile to get there. And it did. And then you get there and you go, man, I either hate this or love it.
Well, one of our freelancers, one of the other freelancers on that project who was with us the entire time, we were wrapping up the writing phase and getting into the playtesting and editing phase when he finally realized, I just got that. Oh my God, how?
Oh my God, that's so good. And that's fantastic.
I live for that moment of, I just got that.
So do you find in your writing, like when you're writing for Cthulhu Dreamt, are you bringing in lessons you've learned from magic?
I do a little bit of that where you kind of bury the goal and you kind of couch where you're going. You allude to it. You give it just the tiniest bit of foreshadowing, even in the magic trick, where there's this. You're kind of being cheeky about it, where you're saying what it is, but you're not really saying it. And I've done at least a little bit of that already with one piece that I wrote that is actually part of the Cthulhu Dreamt ARG.
Okay.
But, I believe you've also interviewed Snails.
I have.
Yep. Snails is just absolutely kicking ass with the ARG, and I'm so glad I got to contribute that little component to that one. But it's a little bit of a backstory to the world. It's a bit of, the science, because apparently that's my specialty for this particular project. And I snuck in a couple of Easter eggs. So anyone who is listening to this who's also participating in the ARG, when you find the bit that I worked on, there's some Easter eggs in there. But I'm not going to tell you which bit I worked on or what to look for, because that ruins the fun of an ARG.
Ah, fun. All right. Very cool. So this is going to be a really weird question.
All right.
I'm going to set it up, though, because growing up, my next door neighbor was a magician and a professional magician. And actually, he became head of the Midwest Magicians Union. He was the guy. As we got older, and I would meet people that were into magic or whatever, and I mentioned him, they'd be like, "Oh, he's the guy." And I'm like, "Really? He was my neighbor. He used to do this great thing when we'd go over for dinner over there, and on the way out, he'd say, "Hey, you want a sucker?" And of course, I'm a kid. I'm like, "Yeah." And he'd pull up a tray and he'd open it and it would be all on fire. And then he'd close it and open it and it'd be suckers. And I'd be like, "Oh my God, the greatest trick ever." And it's sugar. So it's funny though, because when he was older and I talked to him about things and I inquire about a lot of stuff and I started asking about magic. He had guys that he was like completely fixated on. Are there magicians that you are just a huge fan of?
You know what? We took a bit to get there, but it was absolutely worth that trip because
just like your joke, it was worth it.
Well, the other part of things is any great magic routine should have a story. Because you can't just do a trick by itself is fine, but the story is what makes the trick memorable. And that kind of ties into the magicians that I really admire are the ones they don't just do a trick, they tell a story in the process of it.
Sure.
So I've got a couple that spring to mind. James Harrison and Brian Brushwood.
Okay.
Now, Brian Brushwood, he might be familiar to you if you've got a Disney Plus subscription. He did a show called Hacking the System.
I've seen. I know what that show is. Sure.
Yeah, it's the guy, the blonde guy with the glasses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he is a fantastic magician. He used to have very spiky hair and did a lot of fire-based tricks, but he has spent so much time developing his stories. And James he's a magician who did a couple of spots on Brushwood's YouTube channel, Scam School. But he also is pretty well known as a pickpocket magician. And what's funny to say is I did not know any of that the first time I met him, because he actually came down in 2019 to my town to do a lecture at the Magic Circle meeting.
Okay.
And he taught us a bunch of tricks, and he asked if any of us wanted to hang out after his lecture and just go across the street to a fast food place, get some drinks, and just talk and joke about magic and pass around ideas for routines. And so we ended up adding each other on Facebook. I consider him a friend. We chat every now and then. I give him advice on homemade fidget toys, which is another thing that I do. I'm all over the place with my hobbies, I'll admit.
I like it.
But and every now and then he'll give some advice. And now that I think about it, my favorite bit that he talked about was he created this routine that it started off as an accident because he had just one of his tricks on hand when he went to a horror convention. And when he decided he was bored, he's going to have some fun during check-in at the con. And he does one of the magic tricks, and it's a trick that involves touching someone's arm and leaving an imprint of something on their arm. And you take your hand away, and there's just ink on their skin all of a sudden, and it spells out a word.
Oh,
and in this case, the word was Necronomicon. Because it's a horror convention.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And this person, it turns out, was not one of the usual volunteers who was going to be working the desk. She was actually married to one of the organizers. So immediately she went to go and get him. They talked to James, and they got him to actually create a set and perform it there at the con.
Cool.
And he created this entire storied routine where he was a professor at Miskatonic University, showing people all of these horror artifacts and doing magic tricks with each one. And at the very end, every single artifact turned out to be absolutely nothing. So the Hellraiser cube, sorry, that's a Rubik's cube. And all of these other things. And over the course of it, he had also taken off his tweed jacket and then he puts it back on. But when he puts it back on, you don't realize it's actually one of those gowns for a hospital patient.
Okay.
And you realize his outfit has, over the course of his routine, shifted, and he's clearly a patient in an insane asylum.
That's fantastic.
And it was just such a beautiful story, even the almost let down at the very end, that moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
Wow. See, that was worth asking. That was a good one. So with Cthulhu, this is horror heavy. Are you a horror fan? I would imagine so.
So I'm much like with music, where I enjoy and can enjoy pretty much any genre as long as it's well executed. As far as genres of storytelling, as long as I feel it's well executed, the pacing is good, I can enjoy any of those. Horror in particular, I do have a great fondness for. I have read an inordinate amount of Stephen King for someone who doesn't just read Stephen King.
Okay, okay.
I'm also a great fan of Dean Koontz.
Oh, yeah.
Chambers, I've read a bit of.
Sure.
Some classic horror, you got to go all the way back. Of course, you got to go Shelley, Bram Stoker, the really old classics. And of course,
the start of it all. Sure.
Oh yeah. And for film, even great fan of horror films. And, I know there's been a lot of movement toward the very gory films, but I like the unsettling ones, the kind of uncanny valley horror where you realize at the very end, well, that's not too far off of what could happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Or, of course, my favorite trope, it's so overused. And it's funny, for the guy who complains about portals being overused in science fiction, there's a trope in horror films that I know it's overused, but God, if it doesn't get me every time.
Yeah.
It's at the very last second, the last couple of frames of a film, when you've had some monster that everyone is confident is gone. The monster has been killed, slain, defeated, banished, whatever. And one character, we show their face for a second or half of their face, and their eye flickers.
Yep.
Just a little bit to show that
it's not over.
It's not over.
Yes. I love that too.
Overdone, but I love it so much.
But you fall for it every time. Did you see the last Halloween movie?
Yes.
Okay. So at the end of that, a spoiler, I mean, they tell you it ends, right? I was waiting for that moment. I kept thinking, are they going to do this? And how could they? But you saw him shoot up in that thing. And I thought, but are they going to do it?
I mean, if you're a creative enough team, there's always a way to come up with it. Yeah. Admittedly, it's easier with, Freddy or Jason.
Right.
But I'm sure there could have been a way.
Yeah.
I'd have to sit with it and think about it, but I'm sure there's some way they could have.
Well, I have heard that ended that story arc, but they're not done. Ooh. So it's like, does that mean we're going to, because, Halloween is an interesting one. It's got all these branches you can follow. There's the Prime, which is these movies. There's the Prime plus this, which is this movie. Like, are they going to go back to H2O timeline, or are they going to go? Are they going to continue with this in a new trilogy? Who knows?
True.
Who knows?
And actually, now that you've mentioned that, I'm just kind of going to loop all the threads, eventually tie in together. Back to your earlier question about the other things that I've worked on.
Yeah.
And this is, again, I'm going to take a little bit to build up to it.
Go ahead.
But, one of the other members of the company, Adam Buffoni, fantastic writer. He's the creator of the base system that Cthulhu Dreamt is kind of using.
Okay.
So it's a brand new system. Adam is the creator of that system. And in addition to that, he's also got a lot of recognition for a solo role-playing game he published called Journey Home.
Okay.
And that one, it's a journaling RPG played with just a journal and a pair of D6.
Interesting.
And you tell the story of visiting another world, being trapped there, and having to journey and go through all of your travels and adventures to make it back to your own home world. And it's this classic portal fantasy. And at a certain point, Jaren really wanted Adam to expand it. And Adam really wanted to keep it as this short, condensed 12-page PDF. And I came up with a compromise of, well, what if we came up with other genres and other ways we could apply this? And Adam's response was, well, I'm not sure how you would do that, but you're welcome to have at it. Go for it. Create whatever you think you can do with that. And, well, to give a nod to the sort of writer I am, I sat down with it for a weekend. I planned to just write one proof of concept game and come up with a bunch of ideas for other games in other genres that could use this as a base system, and just the idea of a journal storytelling game using these different things. And it kind of got away from me. I got into a groove, and before I realized it, I had adjusted some of the rules in his original system and created a second edition of his game and 5
Awesome.
new games.
Wow.
So I had 5 different journey games. One, and I take journey as a concept a bit less literally as it goes on, because one of them is a science fiction story where it's a journey across the galaxy trying to make it to your home planet.
Sure.
But I also did a few others where it's a journey through your own experiences because you've leapt back into your younger self.
Oh, that sounds good. Now, do you make these available? Do you like make them, put them on Drive-Thru RPG or anything?
We will be. This one, it's currently pending graphic design. We want to get some unique illustrations, and I've asked that each of the games in this anthology should have a different art style.
Sure.
Because I feel like that would really bring out a lot of that. But what we started with there was, the plan was I was going to write one and bring on some freelancers, and they decided, nope, this is done. The anthology is written. You've done it. It's complete.
You've done it. Walk away.
So we created that, and I've meanwhile still got a huge stack of notes for other concepts. So if the anthology does well when we do bring it to Kickstarter and then Drive-Thru, then I can do another one.
Yeah, right.
I'll just make another weekend out of it.
Well, I've got a couple of things. We're getting close to the end here, but I got a couple of things I want to say. Number one, I'm going to put a link to Journey Home. So Adam, hopefully some people will go on Drive-Thru and buy your game and get kind of a preview as to what you're eventually going to kickstart. Yep. And
that's
when
also
you're
on Itch, if you want to check.
Itch. Okay, great. I'll get a link for that too. You know what? I should probably write it down. So the other thing is, when you are ready to kickstart that, I'm going to invite you on another show I do, which I actually had Jaron on this week. It's called Go Fund This. And we just talk about crowdfunding opportunities. And I go through the tiers with you, not too extensively, just kind of like, hey, what are some highlights and what are some of the stretch goals? And it makes people aware of your Kickstarter. So anyone listening to this, check out those shows on Go Fund This. Because you hear about a lot of cool games and comics and stuff. And eventually you will hear Strato on there.
Sounds good.
You are definitely invited. It's an open invitation for that.
Outstanding. So I will take you up on that.
I'll put all this stuff in the show notes that we've discussed. But for now, where can people find you?
So I can be found some of the time on Twitter at Strato_Magus. Been my handle for well over a decade, and I'm not letting go of it anytime soon.
It's all you. Okay.
Yep. So I do sometimes post on there, and if people tag me into conversations, I'm pretty responsive to that sort of thing. Obviously, if folks want to reach out to me, the easiest thing is hop in on the Action Fiction Discord. I love interacting with folks there. There's admittedly a few running jokes that you may run into from the existing members of our community that suggest that I am myself an eldritch horror. So I guess
you're one of the ancient ones. I
was always going to do Cthulhu Dreamt. Apparently, there was just no chance I wasn't going to get involved with this.
That's funny.
So that's that running joke. But you can find me on there, and of course, go to actionfiction.com. And all of the work that I'm going to be doing is going to be there, as well as if folks want to find a way to get a hold of me, that'll also be there.
Fantastic. Strato, thank you so much for being on.
For sure.
I look forward to chatting with you in the Discord. I'm sure we'll have a lot to say to each other.
Absolutely.
Between magic and horror and gaming, I think our conversation is nowhere close to complete.
Probably not. If you're also a big fan of coffee, then we can talk.
I am a huge fan of coffee. You have no idea you're talking to.
That is great because I was the person who put together the what flavor profile we wanted for the special coffee blend we got made for Chromatic Gamut, which was our big queer expansion for Monsters of America.
Nice.
And I was able to tell the roaster exactly what I was looking for because I know the regions, I know the flavor profiles for those, I know the roast levels. And so it took all of 2 emails to nail down exactly what we were getting.
What you wanted. It's funny. I actually was at GaryCon this weekend.
Nice.
And I met a roaster who I met him through a guy I played a game with who was running a Star Wars game. And he said, "Oh, we put out our own coffee." And
Smugglers?
No, Edge of the Empire.
Oh, no. Sorry. The roaster.
Yeah, Smugglers. Yes.
Yeah. Dave is the one who actually handled the roasting.
All right. Well, Dave and I are now friends, and we were talking about the possibility of him making us doing special brews for some of my shows and for some of the projects that I have. And
absolutely do it. He delivers a fantastic product. And he's great to work with.
I loved the guy. We had a great time, and he had the greatest logo ever. It's great. It's great. So yeah, I will mention you when I talk to Dave this week. Because I love that idea. I used to. So last thing, you see how smart I am. When we started our podcast network, we started doing live shows out of a coffee shop called the Blue Box Cafe. It's a Doctor Who themed coffee shop.
Nice.
The guy who owned it, I didn't know him at the time. We became fast friends, and we became very close best friends. He died a couple years ago. Very sad. I'm still reeling from this, but he was the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the smartest guy in the room. I made best friends with a guy that owns a coffee shop.
Always a good plan. Anyone who knows me, especially the people in my own town, will tell you that I have done the same thing a couple of times over.
We used to
3 cafes I can go to and be greeted by name by the owner.
Yep. Well, that's how Chris and I, we called it Coffee Palooza. We would go to coffee shops all the time. Whenever my wife and daughter and I would travel, I would take pictures of inside the coffee shops to try all the stuff and back and forth with the Instagram between the two of us and talk about coffee addicts. When I went to Portland, I think I became more coffee than man. So who knows? Enough. Maybe I'll start writing my own, D6 game of Coffee Palooza.
Hey, go for it. I'll play that.
Yeah, you know what? And it's a drinking game, but the type of drinking game we want to play.
There we go. Just take a shot of coffee, shot of espresso.
Right. Different blends, different brews, and who knows? You might draw that one that has a ghost pepper in it. All right. That is it, Strato. Thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful.
It was great being here.
Look forward to meeting you and sharing a lot of coffee.
That sounds great. Oh, I just remembered where I was going with the Journey Home thing.
Oh, let's hear it.
One of the 6 games that's going to be in that anthology is a game of being on the run from a slasher. You play as the hero or heroine of a slasher film.
I love it.
But to justify the journaling, it's not a journal. You're live tweeting it or you're live blogging it on Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
When is this coming out? Because I got to have this.
That's going to be one of the ones we put in either the next project after Cthulhu Dreamt or the one after the next one after that. So it's one of our next 3.
Yeah, well, I'm on the team, so I might need a little play testing.
I will send you a play test copy of this PDF.
And I will review it. How's that sound? I'll tell you.
That sounds great.
What I think. And let's start getting some quotes on things. Yeah, let's do it. And then once again, we go and share some coffee. So, Strato, this was great. I look forward to this. Boy, now you really got me lit up. Slasher game, I'm in. Thank you again for being on. And good luck with Cthulhu Dreamt and everything else that we talked about.
For sure.
I want you to do one of these as you leave. Magic. All right.
The classic.
Thanks again, Strato, for coming on and nerding out with me. I had such a blast. I can't wait to have you on again in the future. If you or anyone you know has a crowdfunding effort about to launch or currently going, send them my way. I can feature their project on this show and on my other show, Go Fund This. I love to share cool TTRPG projects and to help people reach their goals. You can connect with me through the TTRPG Insider Facebook page or via email directly to to rob@ttrpginsider.com. Please rate and review TTRPG Insider wherever you listen to this podcast. It really helps others find the show, which helps spread the word about our amazing guests and their incredible games. TTRPG Insider is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted, edited, and produced by me, Rob Southgate. Thanks so much for listening to the TTRPG Insider.